Hi, I'm Korey Hicks, and welcome to the Guitar in a Year Beginner to Intermediate. I'm going to take you from your very first steps learning the guitar all the way to the intermediate stage through 52 lessons coming out once a week on Wednesdays. Today, we're going to act like you've never picked up a guitar before, and I'm going to show you how to hold and tune the instrument, how to hold the pick, and we're going to start working through a couple of our proficiencies. So what's a proficiency? Well, I've been teaching guitar for over 20 years, mostly to intermediates and professional level musicians. And in that time, I've noticed that a lot of people have deficiencies or gaps in their knowledge. And I've always thought to myself, what if they would have fixed these things very early on? So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going through and learning all of the tips and tricks that you need to learn in the first beginning stages of playing guitar. We're not going to leave anything out. So if you're looking for a course that's going to be like instant gratification, this will not be that course. This will be a very structured course. You're going to figure out exactly what to practice on any given week. You're going to be able to look at a practicing plan. I'm going to tell you exactly how long to practice each element so you know exactly what you're doing. This is going to guarantee your success, and it's going to guarantee that you are growing on the instrument. I've never had somebody in my 20 years of teaching that has not gotten better through practicing. So let's get started. First of all, on holding the instrument. So because most of you are going to be right-handed players, I'm going to be using, obviously, a right-handed guitar. I am going to be using what we call a Dreadnought acoustic. This is a Yamaha FG800, and this is a very inexpensive, I think they're about $150 to $180, somewhere in that range. And it's a perfect guitar for a beginner guitarist. So what you're going to be doing is placing the guitar on your leg, like this. Now, one of the very first problems that I see students do is they try to, what I call Johnny Cash the guitar. They kind of hold it like this. We don't want to be doing that, okay? The arm has to go kind of at an angle. Our picking hand, the hand that holds the pick, is going to be kind of doing this clock face thing where you can see this would be probably a 9 o'clock, going down to, 6 o'clock or whatever, okay? And so when we're strumming, it's almost like a fulcrum motion, okay? And so it's from this elbow, okay? And so a lot of our comfort on the guitar is going to be coming from doing this right from the very beginning, okay? Second of all, holding the pick, what you're going to do is you're going to act like you're shaking my hand, okay? And then you're going to curl in your first finger. You're going to place the pick on that first finger and put the thumb down on it, okay? And so you'll see that I have just a little bit of tip pointing out if I'm using the tip or the rounded shoulder. That's one thing that I always suggest for my beginner students. When you take a look at the course materials for this, which will be on Patreon, you're going to find that I always suggest beginners start off with the humble Fender medium. This pick is been used by so many famous players. Studio musicians like Reggie Young and Guthrie Trapp, people like Uncle Larry uses a Fender medium, right? People like Stevie Ray Vaughan. All these players use these types of picks. Neil Schon from Journey. I could go on and on and on. Jimi Hendrix, right? So the Fender medium is a great place to start. I've gone through hundreds of different types of picks, thicknesses, shapes, materials through the years, and I really kind of wish that I would have stuck with the Fender medium from the very beginning. Now, one thing I did not know that I'm going to share with you today is that the vast majority of my heroes, and I figured this out only a couple of years ago, play on the rounded corner of the pick. It's a little bit of a smoother sound. There's the tip. Here's the rounded shoulder. Now, a lot of people find that it's easier to play on the rounded shoulder because it's a little bit more forgiving, but the reason that's the case is because a lot of players will put the pick in between the strings, so it's harder to go from string to string because you're actually having to lift the pick out, go to the next string, and that type of thing. But in the end, it's going to be your personal preference, okay? Now, the picking motion, I'm always going to be focusing on keeping this arm straight. So if I'm just playing a scale like this, you'll notice that I'm keeping my right arm, my picking arm, very straight, okay? So if I'm playing the low E string, I have my pick on that string, and then I'm going to be, whatever I'm playing on that string. As I go to each adjacent string, the arm from the elbow is going to go down to meet that string. You don't want to, keep your arm planted in place here and then kind of bend your wrist over when you're picking. You want it to be a nice fluid motion, okay? And it's totally fine if you're draping your hands on the pick guard here. One thing I just would caution against is going to be tightly holding on to the pick guard, or having your pinky curled under a string or something like that. These can cause problems later on. All you have to do is hold your hand out like this and your arm, and then tense your pinky up, and you can feel all your muscles and tendons just tense up. Now imagine if you're practicing an hour to 2 to 3 hours a day with that kind of tension, you might develop repetitive stress injuries, okay? So that's another thing that we're going to be talking about today, is going to be avoiding playing injuries, okay? So we have the right side of our body, our right leg, with the guitar on it. Notice that I'm not Johnny Cashing the guitar by putting my arm around it, giving it a big hug. It's not sat out in front of me. It's kind of out at an angle this way, kind of in between my legs, okay? And then my arm is on the upper bout of the guitar, and I'm able to maneuver my arm from the lowest string to the highest string, okay? Another thing that you might notice is that I have my sleeve rolled up. A lot of players will do that. That's because, having the friction of my skin on the finish of the guitar is going to help to hold my arm in place, and it's just going to be another thing that reduces the amount of tension and fatigue in my arm. You will notice yourself tiring all the way through here in the beginning stages. So, okay, let's talk about left hand. One of the things that a lot of beginners ask about the left hand is, should they put their thumb over the neck or behind the neck? Now, it depends on the technique. If I'm going to be doing a bend, I need my thumb over the neck because bending is also a fulcrum motion type of thing, okay? Now if I'm going to be playing, these types of arpeggios, I'm probably going to have the thumb behind the neck. So it depends on what technique or what thing you're playing. That's going to have, depending on whether your thumb is over the neck or not. Usually when teachers are telling you don't put your thumb over the neck, it usually is because maybe they're a classical guitar instructor. Classical guitars, like this nylon string over here, have a very flat radius on the fingerboard. So we're talking a 20-inch radius, okay, and a very wide nut. It's a much larger feel in the palm of the hand. So in order for me to properly play a nylon string classical guitar, most of what I do is going to be thumb behind the neck. The next thing we're going to talk about is finger placement on the fretboard. So what's happening with the guitar is you have, in this case, a 25.5-inch scale length. It's going from this nut all the way back to the bridge here, okay? And so what happens with that string is when I play, I'm shortening the scale length. I'm shortening the string, which is going to make it sharper, which is going to make the pitch go higher, okay? And so if I am playing in the center of a fret space, that's called fret space there's going to be a little gap there, which is going to cause buzz. Notice that the closer I get to this fret, the buzz goes away, okay? And so when you're playing, we're going to be focusing on putting our fingers as close to the fret as we can. Now there are certain circumstances where your fingers are going to, because you're playing a chord, like maybe this C chord like this, where your fingers are going to not be able to do that. So we just do the best we can, okay? All right, so let's talk about tuning the guitar. Now for a lot of you, if you bought a guitar in a kit, you probably got this type of tuner that comes with it, which is a headstock tuner, and it's actually going to read the vibration of your guitar, and it is going to show you on this little dial here. And so the first thing you have to understand about tuning is that it takes people usually a lot longer to learn how to properly tune their instrument than to play their first couple of songs. So sometimes I'll get a student that's like, why didn't I learn how to, tune on the first lesson? Well, you did, but it's just, it takes developing your ear to understand whether something is in tune or not. So it does take a little bit more, becoming familiar with the instrument before you can learn how to tune it really properly by ear. Another thing that I will say is that the guitar is never perfectly in tune. If I tune all of my open strings to be in tune, all these frets have to be in tune as well. So for example, if I hit, let's see, what did I want to do here? Let's say if I take this B note. That's actually pretty good, especially for an inexpensive acoustic guitar. But I found a B note way up here on the low E string, which should be the same pitch as my open B string. That's pretty darn good. You can work with your guitars, bring them to a luthier, or learn how to set up your guitars yourself to get them to play as in tune as possible. But sometimes, like if I play this D chord up high, it's not perfectly in tune. Okay, and so that's one of those things to kind of get used to. You do want to tune your instrument before you play each time. It's really important for your ear training. I notice some, players, they'll come in their second week of lessons, their guitar is completely out of tune, and they haven't tuned it that whole week. Imagine if you're teaching your child what the color blue is, but tomorrow it's kind of teal, or the next day it's kind of a yellow blue. You know what I mean? Every day you're telling the child, hey, this is blue, but it's a different shade of the color. It's going to take them a lot longer to understand what blue is if it's constantly changing. Eventually we're going to want to develop our ear to a point where that's an A major 7 sharp 11 and a 13 chord. Right, we're going to be able to pick out those pitches. 1, 5, 13, there's a 9 sharp 11, there's my major 7 on top. So that will come much later, but we have to build that skill from the ground up. Okay? And so, as your instructions with these things are pretty simple. If I'm tuning my high E, I want to get that right in the middle there. Okay? Now you will notice on some guitars, if the tuning is not perfect, you're going to go either sharp or flat on various frets. That's okay, but I do want to give a word of advice here. If you are, a little bit sharp on your string, don't detune the tuner, okay, to go down to pitch. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go a little too far. If you ever played tetherball, that post with the string winding around it, it's going to kind of unravel, and you're going to continue to go flatter and flatter and flatter, and it's going to be a tuning issue for you. So sometimes if a string is a little sharp, I'll bend it a little bit up, and that'll kind of bring it down in pitch the correct way. Or go way below it and tune up to pitch, okay? And the way that I like to tune up the guitar that I found to be really effective is I go from the high E to the low E, then to the B, then to the A, then to the G, then to the D. So I go outside in, okay? And so that seems to be really good for making sure that you don't get to the end of your tuning and then you gotta retune that first string again. All right, so this brings me to one of the proficiency things that we have to do for our first lesson. I want you to be able to say the names of the strings very quickly. E, A, D, G, B, E. Everything that we learn musically, so let's say I do a B major scale, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, right? So if I am learning anything, I need to be able to say what something is, Maybe somebody shows you this Jimi Hendrix chord. It's actually an E7 sharp 9, but furthermore, it's the notes E, G sharp, there's a D natural and a G natural. That's the 1, 3, flat 7, and sharp 9. There's another depth to understanding things in the guitar that, like I said in the beginning, a lot of my intermediate students never took the time to do. And so now they're working backwards. They're trying to fill in these gaps that they probably should have taken care of in the first couple of years of playing, okay? And so it's just really worth your time to make sure that you know everything quickly. Music happens in time, so if someone says, hey Korey, play B major scale, if I can't play it fast, then I'm not going to be able to play it when I need to during the song, right? It's not that I'm going to play it fast every time, it's that I need to know it really well and know where it is really well so that I can perform it in a nice and comfortable, laid-back way, if that makes sense, okay? You don't want everything to be at the very top of your ability when you're playing. And so, we're tuning our guitar, we're memorizing the strings, E, A, D, G, B, E. Just say that over and over and over again. It's one of those things where we're going to go on and I'm going to say, play me your F notes, F, 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 F. And you have to find all those notes really quickly. So these skills are going to be building. So this is the first part of our note recognition skill. We're not only going to be learning the open strings, we're going to be learning every single note on the entire neck over the course of this year. And it's going to be a lot easier than you think. I know a lot of people get intimidated by that, but it is going to be super easy. And it's going to give you a lot of additional power to learning songs, because things in music are not just random. There's a lot of logic that happens when you are learning a song. Like I've mentioned in other videos, when professionals learn songs, I've had to learn as many as 60 songs in 2 days before, or I've had to learn 680 songs for a house band gig at one point. How do professionals learn songs so fast? We know where everything is. If I have a G7 chord, I can find all these different G7 chords on the neck. I don't have to look for them. They're already up here, okay? Which brings me to something else I want you to think about on this, your first lesson. Learning guitar is a language, so you're going to need to every concept you come across, you're going to have to understand it with the mind, the ear, and the hand, okay? Learning guitar is not all about just where to put your fingers. If I'm playing, let's say, Happy Birthday, I'm not just thinking about where to put my fingers. I'm thinking that I'm in the key of F right now, okay? And I'm going 5, 5, 6, 5, 1, 7. I'm thinking about all these things, and that's how I can memorize it and play it in a different key. What if I want it in the key of, D flat? Or what if I want it in the key of A flat? No problem, because I know where those notes are. I know where the relationships are. And I'll tell you, every song I learned on the guitar when I first started playing, before I understand what the notes were and everything, I don't remember really that well now. The thousands of songs that I learned after that point, I know really well because I'm using fretboard logic, ear training logic, and theory logic to find everything on the guitar. And so it's going to be really important for you to put names to everything. And there's going to be other instructors, there's going to be friends, there's going to be family members, or even a YouTube video you watch where they say, no, you don't need to do that. And I'm just going to tell you this right now. Yes, you do. You really do. There are some people out there that are, they learn super quick. They learn maybe very early in life, and maybe they kind of look at the guitar a little bit differently. But for the vast majority of learners, especially if you're picking this up later in life, you are going to need to know what things are called. Okay? Instant gratification does not work for the guitar. Okay? Just remember, it's a language that we're learning. Okay, so what do we have so far? We have our note recognition thing. We're just starting off with knowing the open strings of the guitar. Sometimes you are going to have those shown in string numbers. So string numbers goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, meaning from the thinnest string, which is the high E string, to the thickest string, which is the low E. Okay? So sometimes somebody will say something like, I need a C note on string 3. Well, there you go. Okay, and so knowing that it's, kind of like shoe sizes, it goes up, it gets bigger, right? So the skinny one is string 1, all the way to the thick one is string 6. And so please remember this too, this is the high string, okay? So if I play like a scale, this is going up musically in the scale. I'm not going down. So even though it's physically towards the floor, it's actually the high E string. And a lot of beginners I've had through the years, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll make sure I know that. And they're like, yeah, I'm going down here on the neck. I'm like, no, that's up there on the neck. Or yeah, up here, or down here, they'll say on this thin string. I'm like, that's up there. So just remember, we're going to use musical terms for these things. It's going to be very important because later on, you're going to want to communicate your ideas to other musicians, and we all need to be speaking the same language. Okay? All right. So we're going to start talking about our first guitar exercise. And this is going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise. And we're going to start off here on the first fret of the low E string, string 6, with my first finger. On the hand here, on my left hand, my fingering hand, T for thumb, 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? And I'll use different terms like pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky interchangeably. All right, so I'm going to press down the guitar on the first fret of the low E string, and I'm going to strike it with the pick. And that's going to be a downstroke, meaning down towards the floor. I know, that's kind of weird, right? So you just got done saying that that's the high string. So why isn't that an upstroke? Yeah, I know. You'll get used to it, trust me. Okay, so that's the first finger on the first fret with a downstroke. Next, I'm gonna use the middle finger, finger 2, on the second fret, and I'm gonna pluck an upstroke, so down, up. Third finger is going to be on the third fret. That's gonna be a downstroke. And the fourth finger is gonna be on the fourth fret. That's gonna be a upstroke. This is what we call alternate picking, okay? Now don't worry if you can't do it fast at first. A lot of you probably are going to be struggling with that. But the reason is, when I'm playing anything on the guitar, the alternate picking is kind of like, walking on two legs. If you just down pick everything, it's kind of like hopping on one foot. You get the idea. So what I'm going to be doing for this first exercise, which we're just going to call 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to play those 4 fingers on the low E string, string 6, and then I'm going to go to the next string, A string. I'm going to do the same thing. Same thing on the D string. Same thing on the G string. Same thing on the B string. And same thing on the high E string. Okay? So this first technique exercise is going to sound like this. And your goal is going to be no buzz and clean, cleared notes, and try to play it as in time as possible. We're not going to talk about the metronome just yet, but we will be getting there, okay? So right now, all I want you to do is get familiar with using all 4 of your fingers and the pick like this. Eventually, we're going to do things like 4, 3, 2, 1, or we'll do 1, 3, 2, 4, or we'll do string skipping exercises, with that 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were to play that happy birthday that I referenced earlier, you'll notice every finger has its own fret. So the first finger takes care of everything on the first fret. The second finger takes care of everything on the second fret. The third finger takes care of everything on the third fret. And the fourth finger takes care of everything on the fourth fret. And so it's kind of like zone defense in basketball. So if I'm playing any sort of melody, I have my fingers taking care of that. We wouldn't play Happy Birthday like this, because the guitar is all about economy of motion. We want small amounts of movement, okay? So speed does not come from overpowering the guitar. Speed is going to come from control and economy of motion. Very important for you to remember that. Now, how much should you practice this? Well, in the first couple of weeks of playing, I'm not going to be giving you time limits to practice something, such as, I want you to play this for 10 minutes. I'm going to give you the number of repetitions, okay? So if you were to do this 25 times a day, I think that would be a good goal. So you're just going to get all the way to the top. That's once. That's twice, okay? And you don't have to do it all in a row. Maybe you do 5 of those, put the guitar down, come back a little bit later, pick it up again, do another 5, that type of thing, okay? So playing single notes is actually easier than playing chords to most beginners. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking that because chords are usually thought of as part of the rhythm guitar skill set, rhythm guitar players are often looked at as less flashy or maybe less technically adept than the lead guitar player, it must be easier, right? And I can tell you right now, it's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of rhythm guitar styles that are actually more difficult than your basic classic rock lead styles. So they're both incredibly important. You do have to learn how to do both. It's very essential, not only for a chord player to understand where all the melodies are coming from, but for a soloist to understand how to improvise over chord progression. He needs to understand where all the chords are so he knows the topic that he's talking about. So an improvisation is essentially a topic that you're discussing, right? So if the topic is that E7 chord I was talking about. That's a half whole diminished scale that I would use over that chord, for example. Okay? Now, I would encourage you to go backwards maybe. Okay, so still just doing 1, 2, 3, 4 in this section. If you feel like you're getting bored with that, maybe you can try it another spot. I will say one thing about getting bored when you practice. Remember, playing guitar is supposed to be fun, but practicing guitar, no one promised you practicing guitar is supposed to be fun. It's going to be a challenge, right? So look at it like high school sports, right? Playing the game is a lot of fun, but you're not going to spend your entire practice scrimmaging. You know, you have to go to the weight room. You know, you have to work on plays. You have to do a lot of drills. I remember our two-a-days during winter breaks were just pretty brutal. So practicing doesn't have to be fun, so stop telling yourself that it does, okay? So think about practice as just a way to make your playing time a lot easier, okay? So in this first lesson, let's just do a little bit of a recap, okay? We want to grab everything and be good at all these things so that when we get to the second lesson, we're not falling behind, because you're going to fall behind really quickly if you don't have a lot of these things done. The challenge level is going to grow pretty quickly, okay? So first of all, holding the guitar. I have it sat on my leg here. I have the neck pointed out. I have my arm on the upper bout. I'm not Johnny Cashing the guitar. When I'm holding my pick, it's kind of like a handshake, curl the finger in. The pick goes on that with the thumb down, okay? It's fine if your hands or your fingers kind of splay out a little bit like that, okay? And on the left side, it's for what we're doing here, the 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, your thumb will be behind the neck, okay? We are memorizing the names of the strings. E, A, D, G, B, and E. We're tuning the guitar before we play every single time. We are tuning it properly to pitch. If we go sharp, we're going to try to tug on that string to make sure that it goes down. We're not going to necessarily just detune the whole thing. But if we do have to detune the string, we're going to tune up to pitch, okay? Then we talked about our 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise. And the goal for this exercise is going to be clarity of the notes, and it's going to be economy of motion with the fingers, and it's also going to be clean sound. You don't want any buzzes. Okay? And for a lot of people, that's going to take you the vast majority of the week. Okay? And, you know, some people ask, like, well, why didn't we learn a bunch of chords our first lesson? Well, playing a chord, even this G chord, which I will be showing you very soon, is using all 4 fingers at once. So if we can't use one finger at once, how are we supposed to use 4 at the same time? So we're doing this in a proper order. Last thing that I'm going to give you for today is going to be a finger exercise. And you can do this at any point during your day to kind of develop your fingers. Now, why do we have to do that? Well, most people have a problem with their pinky cooperating, okay? And a lot of that has to do with the ulnar nerve controlling both the pinky and the ring finger. You ever hit your funny bone, right? That's your ulnar nerve, okay? So here's what you're going to be doing. You're going to put your first finger and your ring finger down on your knee with your second and your fourth fingers out, kind of like you're walking a little guy, okay? And then you're going to switch fingers 1 and 3 with fingers 2 and 4. So now I have 2 and 4 down, and 1 and 3 is sticking straight up. You see that? And I'm going to go back and forth like this. This is going to help you to develop your finger independence, which of course for the guitar is going to be very important. You just kind of think of this whenever you can. Maybe you're at a red stoplight, or maybe you're waiting for the bus, or maybe you're just bored in an office meeting or something, who knows. But that is going to be an exercise for the left hand. Don't overdo it. You don't want to stress your tendons out, but you do want to do it enough so that you are able to start developing that finger independence. Okay? All right. So the manual for this course is available over on my Patreon. That information is in the description below. So just go down there. You can pop over to my Patreon, and for $5 a month, you're going to have access to that PDF. And what I'm going to be doing is every week, I'm going to be adding that week's lesson to the booklet. So over the course of the year, we're going to be adding all of this stuff in. If you have any questions, anything that you want to know about today's lesson, go ahead and put it in the comments section below. And if you're going to be joining us on this Guitar in a Year journey, go ahead and subscribe and give the video a like. I think that this is going to be really helpful for a lot of you to go back and learn guitar the right way if you're an intermediate player, for example, or if this is the very first time that you're playing guitar, having the confidence that you're not leaving anything out. We're going to leave no stone unturned over the course of this year. Okay? All right. Well, again, I'm Korey Hicks. Thank you for joining us on Guitar in a Year, week number 1, and I will see you back here next Wednesday morning for week 2. All right. Peace.